Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. It is Tuesday night. It is just after 9 o'clock. If you're a Steelers fan, where else would you want to be other than somewhere warm and not thinking about football? But instead, you're here with us. And with me, as always, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going okay. Just wishing I was somewhere warm. The thinking about football part doesn't bother me so much, but
Yeah.
It's been a little chilly as
Yeah.
they'd say in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and it is a little bit. It's supposed to warm up here the next couple of days, and then it's supposed to rain. I'm like, this time of year, just at least snow. Come on.
You missed the end, the one morning towards the end of last week.
Mm-hmm.
I saw temperatures on my drive to work. Well, let's see, it was negative 12 when I got out of bed. It was negative 10 when I left the house.
Mm-hmm.
I got as low as negative 18 on my drive.
Ugh.
But I also found a spot that was as high as 11 on my
There you
drive.
go. Hey,
But it was negative 3 when I got to work. But when I walked out of the house, I'm going to tell you this, and people out there can understand the craziness of our family. I thought of our granddad Harvey.
okay.
I thought of Pap when I walked outside that morning at negative 10 degrees. Wind chills were in the minus 30s, I believe, close to minus 40. I took a deep breath as I went outside.
You weren't breathing in that smell of victory.
No, it was more like all the hairs in my nose like froze instantly. And I thought instantly of our granddad to something that he said I only remember him saying it to me one time when he came in from outside, and he said, "It's cold enough out there. You got snot sickles growing off your nose." Which, our grandfather, you can like you hear that in his voice, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, I can hear it right now. So
that's what
we're a couple minutes in. We should maybe stop talking about the weather and talk a little bit. We're going to talk some Steelers football. Yes, if you look at the title, it's talking about the Pro Bowl. We are not talking about the Pro Bowl game. Rich, do we care one bit about the game of the Pro Bowl? No, we don't. We're talking about the honor of being selected to the Pro Bowl.
Pro
That's
Bowl
what we're going to be talking
selection.
about later. Yeah, we're talking about being selected and that kind of thing. We're not talking about this game. Although a couple years ago, might have been the last time they actually played the game, or another one. I know TJ Watt had a touchdown in there. But anyway, that's beside the point. We are going to bring up some other things going on around the NFL right now to start off, just to go with our discussion, various things going on. There was, since we last were together, there was a very important retirement last Thursday, the one that really matters, the official announcement. Did you like the Big Ben video?
Oh, the video was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was totally in Big Ben style. It was nice. It was done very classy. Really hit Steeler fans, really hard, but not a ton of hoopla around it, which is also Ben.
Yes, and
it was done totally on his terms.
Yes, there wasn't the press conference, and I like, like Jeff Hartman kept saying, do you really want people to say, "Oh, where are the Steelers going to go from here?" Well, and him answer a bunch of quote unquote dumb questions, mainly because the media would need to ask these questions if there was a press conference. I'm not blaming them either. They're the kinds of questions you would expect, but they're it's always dumb questions when someone goes to retire. You'd probably have to hear from Kevin Colbert. You'd have to hear from Mike Tomlin, all those, Mike Tomlin talked about Ben in his final press conference and things like that. It was done the way he wanted it to be, and that was great. There's also another retirement that happened and then didn't happen and then actually happened. Was it today?
Yeah, he's the guy I think he is. Thinks he's special. Not be just, have two retirements.
Yeah, he needed a lot more time to decide, and 12 hours later, there's an announcement. So we're not going to go into that. We're acknowledging it. I will tell you this: there's an article coming tomorrow morning at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, where a number of us chime in on that. I'm trying to remember how it was phrased, how it's
I didn't even look. I just
I don't even know. So it's just various different things about chiming in on that subject. Just acknowledge it.
Let me just, people need to go out there and read this, because one of the Scho Bros got a little long-winded.
And it wasn't actually
me. It wasn't Dave.
Yes. As we all know, I'm the long-winded one. Well, we both can be at times, but this time it was you. So we're not going to really dive too much into that. That a lot of people have talked about the Ben Roethlisberger retirement. We knew it was coming, so we can kind of, acknowledge it. Say once again, thank you, Ben, for 18 great seasons. Thank you for having all those years where we knew who our quarterback was going to be coming into the season. Now we're into uncharted territories. We'll see what happens. And as Jeff talked about on his one Let's Ride, it's kind of scary, but kind of exciting too, just because it's different. So
let me just I want to wrap one thing. I want to say about Ben's retirement. I just want to say real quick, yes, thank you, Ben Roethlisberger, for 18 fabulous years in Pittsburgh, and that I hope you had as much fun as we had watching you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really think he did. Ben always seemed to enjoy playing the game of football.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying to think, who was it this weekend that it was just like, there was a couple times I almost just want to throw up my mouth to say it, but I was like, Joe Burrow was escaping the pocket and missing and escaping tackles. I'm like, is he just trying to be Ben Roethlisberger since he announced his retirement? Is that what he's trying to do or something?
Yeah.
But we could at least acknowledge that there was 2 football games played this past weekend. We know who's going to the Super Bowl now. Yeah. How do you feel about another AFC North team being in the Super Bowl, Rich?
I was okay with it until one former Bengal, former Bungle.
Yeah.
He should ride up and down the Escalooser a lot. Pac-Man Jones came out.
Bungle. That's what we got to get that right. That's definitely a former Bungle. Go ahead.
Said that he didn't want Steeler fans to root for the Bungles because he just didn't want it. So made my decision easy who I was going to root for in the Super Bowl. So
and guess what? You want to know what? Just like when you were actually playing, we still don't care what you have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Never cared what you had to say, really, at all. You could just when you single-handedly just make a questionably long field goal into almost a chip shot, knocking your team out of the playoffs. Yeah, you lost the right to speak. Anyway, I look at it this way. Because people were like, "Oh, are you cheering for Cincinnati?" I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm kind of cheering against Kansas City because I don't want to see the same team go to the Super Bowl 3 straight years. Correct. But I wasn't okay. I was really pulling for the Rams because I really didn't want the 49ers just because of the whole franchise, number of Super Bowls and all that stuff there. So I was pulling more for the Rams. And honestly, I always had a soft spot for the Detroit Lions. So when Matt Stafford can actually get away from them and have a successful season, I kind of don't mind seeing him do well. You've got Aaron Donald that actually went to Pittsburgh, and a player, I'll probably mention this player a little bit later for something, that there's actually a starter for the Los Angeles Rams that had it been, it didn't line up exactly right, but my last year coaching football, we played teams that played their team, but we just didn't happen to line up to where we played the team that year where I would have coached against this player for the Rams. So he's actually their starting right tackle. And so I'm like, I've always kind of followed him as someone, semi-local of where he's been. And honestly, if it wasn't for the tackle on the other side of the line, he very well could be a Pro Bowler. And that's now I'm gonna. I just always we always, when we talked about Rob. Havenstein. I don't know if it's Havenstein or Havenstein, but it's one of those two. Anyway, so for that reason, I was pulling for them, and now since they won, I can pull for them in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
If it would have been the other way, I don't know what I'd have done. So,
been like me when Tom Brady plays in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not watch.
It's just like I don't really want either one of these teams to win and stuff like that. I'll be honest with you, I was pulling so much for Buffalo to upset, or not to upset, to take down Kansas City. When that didn't happen, I was like, but it's all right. You know what? I can just watch the game as being the last game for 6.5 months.
USFL, baby.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Ballers.
All right, bad. I'm like,
that's why I brought that
oh
up.
my goodness.
I got to do my best.
He's so excited about the Maulers. I'm like, okay, you have at that. Anyway.
Like Mike Rozier.
Oh. Yeah. So, but it's just, there was still football going on. We're still getting, there's a few things getting around. I don't want to, there's two other things I wanted to mention, because some people were probably excited about this. Today was the first day of practice for the Senior Bowl. Got the Senior Bowl coming up this weekend. For those people really into the draft, the Senior Bowl is a really big deal. One Pittsburgh quarterback, Kenny Pickett, did not have his hands measured because apparently he's double jointed and his thumb doesn't stick the right way. So it measures less than what it was a whole big thing today. It was interesting. And then, of course, at the end of the day, there was the lawsuit that was brought forward against the NFL. We're going to mention this briefly, and we're not going to go into it too much because honestly, there's going to be a lot more information coming out about it. And we don't want to jump in too soon and be like, oh, well, this, that, or the other thing. For those of you that may not have heard, it's former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores, who I was shocked when he was fired. And as soon as he was fired, I thought the same thing you did. What did you think, Rich?
I thought, even though we hadn't had an official retirement announcement yet from our defensive coordinator, Keith Butler, I was sitting there thinking, Brian Flores for defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Come to Pittsburgh.
That was my first
thought.
Love
to have you.
And then I said, you know what? There is no way he's going to be. I'm like, he's going to be out there for 5 minutes and he's going to be somewhere else. Even this morning, Matty P asked about him in the Slack channel. Like, wow, there's a lot of hires and Flores is still out there. I said, well, look for him in Houston or whatever. Don't think so now. But with the lawsuit coming up, lots of interesting things about the Miami Dolphins, about the New York Giants, about the Denver Broncos. Talking just about overall racism within the whole process. And of course, that brings up the Rooney Rule. I will tell you, I think it's something that I've said for a long time. The Rooney Rule is not perfect. It's the right intentions, but there's just so many ways you can get around it.
Yep.
They can't force teams to genuinely consider candidates. You hope that wouldn't be the case, but I'm still saying it's better than not having it at all. Some people are like, there's a problem with that. They just need to get. I'm not saying get rid of it, and I'm not saying anything would make it better. I'm just saying it's the best you can do, and it's still just not going to always work in the way it's supposed to. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about at times in higher education, and it's something me personally I'm always against. I hate having things that are put out there that we do just so that we can check a box to say that we do it. And that's what it feels like a lot of NFL teams do when it comes to the Rooney Rule. They do what it says to check the box and then do what they want. Not necessarily what they want to do, but it's like they don't give it a chance.
Yeah.
They don't give it a chance to do what it was designed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And
the Steelers, the last time we hired a head coach, did it.
Well, people don't realize this. Back then, that was when you only had to interview one candidate, and they already had. With Ron Rivera. So when Mike Tomlin came in, that wasn't checking a box. They had already checked the box. but it wasn't about checking a box and everything. And that's what you need to, and I also understand the benefit of the Rooney Rule of, giving minority candidates more exposure and more practice to the whole interview process. I get that. But at the same time, Brian Flores was not someone who was new to the process. And the whole, I don't want to mess up the story. I don't want to get something wrong, but it's it seems like his interview, I don't know if it was a first interview or a second interview or whatever with the Giants, was really a formality because they had already decided who they wanted, but they needed to continue to do this. That's very disrespectful to the candidate. It really is.
It is.
But when you want to look at it from the other way, I'm like, when they knew who it was that they wanted, and that they wanted an offensive-minded person, and their other candidates were defensive people and things like that, you kind of understand that they didn't want to lose out on him. But at the same time, you can't just go through the motions. You can't. I'm not saying that's what happened. There's going to be more come out about it. That'll be more. We'll have all the information. I thought the most crazy thing about it was the whole notion of he was offered $100,000 for each game he lost in 2019. I mean, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, so you might as well read that.
Okay. Oh, I didn't even read that was up there. Sean Manhan, $5 at the tip jar. Thank you, Sean. Says, "What y'all making the assertions that Miami owner wanted Flores to tank in Miami?" That was like a Joe Burrow thing, right?
If this is
they didn't even know Joe Burrow was going to be the guy when the season started. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Sean, if this were to be found to be true, my thought is we're looking at something way bigger than Bountygate.
Mm-hmm.
It will be investigated, and if shown to be true, it will surpass what you see come out of it. What happens to the team and the people involved is going to be bigger than Bountygate was. That's my thought. Well, that came up on the Slack channel too, right? Somebody brought that up when we were talking. That's
a really big deal. I'm sorry, I looked two things up here because I saw someone talking about the school where I used to coach, and it said it was the year after I stopped coaching. From Big Mac said that. I'm trying to figure out who that is. If in the live chat, if that's, obviously that should be someone I know.
So basically, you're saying, Big Mac, who are you?
Yeah, come on, Big Mac.
It's not like they can't hear you.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out who it is. I can't see on the picture well enough. But yeah, that was because I was coaching the freshman team, and my last year coaching was his freshman year, and that was his first. It's crazy. Just to go off on that side note.
No,
we'll get to that side note later.
No, so everybody else,
the Flores stuff. Yeah.
Well, look, I was going to say, we're not going to go really much further into the Flores stuff right now
because there's so much more information that needs to come out.
Yeah, this is going to be dug into more, and as more information comes out, of course, we're going to be reporting about it here at BTSC, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
And this is something we're going to continue to cover. So we're not going to spend all night on it tonight because everything now, there's a lot of, hey, this is there. Anything that you're talking about, there's too much speculation still going on right now. More needs to happen. And it's going to.
And for those of you listening to this in podcast form, there's probably already a bunch of information that might have already changed from what we already said. So we do want to say, but yeah, that's crazy. The whole notion of don't win. I don't know. How do I say it? I can't say that issue was a race issue because, it was a minority head coach, but I also can't say that it wasn't either.
Yeah.
That's one that I would really like to get more information. Would they have told a non-minority coach to do that? I don't know. I think we'll find out a lot more about that. I was really, 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 really surprised that, how do I say it? The NFL, I'm trying to remember the exact words that they said at the end of their statement. And I'm like, that's a really bold statement to say like an hour and a half after a lawsuit that that everything is, I thought, you might want to actually have an investigation into it first, but I digress. Let's leave that where it is. And everything. Let's talk about the Pro Bowl. So no, yeah, we're not really, Hey, and Big Mac, I see you leaving the stuff in the live chat for me. I'm going to get to that. Okay.
The game itself, you know what? Back in the 80s, I had fun watching the Pro Bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the 90s got going, they got worse and worse. I mean, they weren't fantastic in the 80s, but they were better then than they were in the 90s. And now they're basically just a joke. More, I think it's about the recognition of playing at a level to be considered.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we want to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, as I'm sure it's been brought up, the Steelers added a couple of more Pro Bowlers to the mix.
Yes. And that's one thing we want to talk about. Well, I got to write that article late Sunday night, I do believe, that Pro Bowl replacements count as Pro Bowlers. We got to remember that. So when Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon were obviously not going to the Pro Bowl because of going to the Super Bowl, they were replaced by Diontae Johnson and Najee Harris. So we're also going to have to do our little throwback machine, Wayne's World style. Yeah, because we're going back. Oh, what was the exact date on this one? The exact date on this one was on June 29th. And I actually went back and listened to the episode, and it was
1914.
No, and it was where we had to announce that we weren't going to be on the next week because we were on vacation in a house with no internet. So that was fun listening back to that show. We went through and we listed 5 players that we thought could be first-time Pro Bowlers. And we're going to go over those lists here. But before we do, and what's funny is we each got one right from the replacements that were named. But we're not going to talk about this game. We want to talk about the honor of being selected to the Pro Bowl. And to me, it gets tricky because we talked about this at length, if you remember from the show, Rich, about it has to be the right circumstances.
Correct.
And that's what we're going to address here a little bit about the players and the circumstances and everything else. I almost didn't put Najee Harris on my list, and you didn't put Najee Harris on your list, who is a Pro Bowler. Yep. And our biggest reason was he's got a lot of guys in the AFC that he'd have to knock off. Mainly one was, Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. Well, what happens? Derrick Henry's out for the year. Joe Mixon was there, but then he moved. Joe Mixon rushed for 5 more yards than Najee Harris this year. I don't know if you knew that. That's how close they were in rushing.
I did not know that.
Yes, he rushed for Najee Harris was exactly 1,200 and Joe Mixon was 1,205. So he did a good job, but it was very circumstantial. Here's the other thing. If the Steelers have a better, if they have a decent passing attack and a decent offensive line, he probably puts up more stats and gets selected in the first place. But if they have too much of a passing attack and they don't run the ball enough, he might have not been considered at all. And it had nothing to do with how good of a player he was this year.
That's right.
So These are some things we're going to look at. So do you want to go ahead and run through our list and then kind of talk about some of these things? Okay. So this is what we did. And these were the players, and you're going to laugh at some of these. Some of these are hilarious. Of who we thought had a chance to be first-time Pro Bowlers. And it's funny because during the show, someone brought up, technically Diontae is a special teamer. And then we realized after the show, we're like, wait, he wasn't a Pro Bowler his rookie year as a kick returner. He was second-team All-Pro. He still didn't make the Pro Bowl at it. So he was still eligible anyway. But first-time Pro Bowlers, you're number 5. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
It was Robert Spillane.
Bobby Spills.
Yes. Which ended, the Steelers made a trade to not even have to start him. So I see what I understand what you meant with the potential that it could have been the perfect storm for him, but really it wasn't at all, was it? So
no.
Yeah.
So Kyle was hoping. Kyle was a big Bobby Spills fan.
And he didn't play all that much. He did a little bit more at the end. played more than my number 5 pick of Stephon Tuitt.
Yeah.
Yes, back in June, thinking that Stephon Tuitt could possibly earn his first Pro Bowl. Now, this gets us in, and I'm going to bring up your number 4 because I think it's good to group these together. Your number 4 was Tyson Alualu.
Mm-hmm.
Alualu. Sorry, I said Lulu. Alualu. Yeah, I said it wrong. So, and we talked about players at that position, and the problem was you're like in order to make the Pro Bowl, you're probably going to have to be better than Cam Heyward, because it would have been really tough for them to do 2 defensive tackles and for them to both be from the same team. Agreed?
Yeah.
And we thought, well, maybe they could just put up the numbers, because usually when Tuitt and Heyward play together, Tuitt actually puts up more numbers, And Alu was another one. I kind of went with one. You went with the other. I'm going to ask you an interesting question. I'm going to take it beyond Pro Bowl. If Stephon Tuitt would have been healthy, both physically and mentally, we still don't know exactly what it was that held him out, and he would have played at a typical Stephon Tuitt level, is Cam Heyward all pro this year?
No.
I agree.
Because he doesn't get the sack numbers.
Yeah. Because it would have been spread out a little bit more.
Yep.
If Stephon Tuitt was healthy and playing in between, let's say they were in nickel, so they only had 2 defensive linemen, playing between Cam Heyward and TJ Watt, does TJ Watt tie the NFL sack record this year?
Ooh, good question. Probably not.
And that might have put him a little bit more in question for Defensive Player of the Year. And here's the big question. If Stephon Tuitt would have been available and healthy and just playing at his normal level, would the Steelers' run defense have been better?
Well, let me take that one step. Let me take that one step.
I was going to ask the next question as a B. Yeah. Okay.
So, and that's the B, because I'll answer it all together. Yeah. The B is, if Stephon Tuitt is there and healthy and playing, and Tyson Alualu does not
get injured,
does not break his ankle. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Steelers' defense is tremendously better.
Yeah. Their run defense, their overall defense, I think they finish higher in the overall standings. They're not 7th and going on the road. They might have even won the North. Maybe not, but they would have probably been a higher wild card, if at least. Mm-hmm. Think it's good. You got to at least think maybe a half a game might have made the difference. You know what I'm saying? Or one game, and how different it would be. But I don't know if Cam Heyward would have been all pro.
Right. So
that kind of goes to show you that it's fantastic for Heyward. I don't want to take away anything that he did. I'm just saying that there's only so many tackles and so many chances to hit the quarterback to go around. And if you have to divide it up with somebody, you got Chris Wormley wouldn't have got 4 sacks. Not 4. Sorry. He had 7. Sorry. Chris Wormley had 7 sacks. Wormley's not getting 7 sacks. He probably would have been lucky to get 2, if Tuitt's there. But it's very interesting in how it plays out. And this just kind of goes to show, this was kind of the point of the show that I wanted to bring up, is that these individual awards are great, but sometimes you get noticed for them because you're of a deficit on your team.
Because of circumstances.
Yeah. And sometimes the circumstances would make it better. We'll get to some of those too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like, I'm going to bring it up. It's just a regular comment just because I thought it was interesting. And Granny Crosby says, think about TJ Watt's season for a second. The Steelers were always behind. So there was never a time for him to tee off.
Yes. They had mentioned earlier, said, hey, maybe if the Steelers are playing with more leads, maybe TJ gets to 30 sacks.
Yeah, exactly. So it all would have been different. And, or maybe, so we're speculating. I mean, this is all come on, it's the offseason. These are all what ifs. So it's really interesting to think about that if the Steelers were a better defense, they might have had less all pros.
Yeah.
That if they were a better defense, they might have had less all pros. Now we'll look at the flip side of that a little bit. Anything else you want to say about that with the defensive line, since we had Tuitt and Alualu as our possible Pro Bowl guys?
Keep rolling through our other possible Pro Bowl guys.
Then the other one was my number 4. And I said the reason I didn't have him higher than 4 was because of all the competition. And we already mentioned him. The one that I got, I got one right, Najee Harris.
Right.
Making the Pro Bowl was first year in the NFL. It's fantastic. Congratulations to Najee. He deserves it. And and in order to get 1,200 yards, he had to be the running back that got hit behind the line of scrimmage more than any other running back in the NFL.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So with him, you think about, man, if I'm just going to throw this out there. If you didn't read last week's Steelers Vertex at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, you can just go to Google and just type in the word Steelers Vertex. And most of our articles, probably the most recent one's going to come up. Last week it was about Kevin Dotson and how the running game was not good to start the season for the first 4 games. You had 2 rookies starting on the line. What did you expect? But was it getting better? And it was strong. And then Kevin Dotson got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And Dotson got hurt. And the running game went right back to kind of where it was. Because you think about it, you have a rookie at center, a rookie at left tackle, but you had you had that guy in between them. Now you're rolling guys in and out in between them, finally settle in with John McGlue. Now you're talking about an undrafted guy that is finally getting his chance. It's not like he's going to carry the 2 guys next to him. Kind of like what Dotson was really I mean, the 2 guys next to him weren't worried about what Dotson was doing. He was going to get it done. Maybe not to the level that he did the year before, because Dotson next to Marquise Pouncey, Jeffrey would go on and on about that, how great those 2 were together. But if Kevin Dotson doesn't get hurt, how many more yards does Najee Harris get?
The world may never know.
The world may never know. So that's just one of those. And I don't think you could say, I mentioned at the beginning about, if the Steelers had a better passing attack, maybe Najee Harris doesn't get used much. No, I don't think that's true, because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. If anything, if they had a better passing attack, it would open the run up more for him. Don't you think?
Probably.
Yeah. He might not have had as many carries, but he probably would have had more yards. But I'm trying to go back. I might have to try to find the article. I think Najee Harris, I think he had the most receptions of any running back this past year. I wrote it in the article when he made the Pro Bowl. I'm trying to remember. And he was like 3rd in receiving yards among running backs. So he was utilized there pretty good too. Well, there was that one game where he had 14 catches, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Najee Harris or the running back situation?
No, let's get to some more.
Because that really does depend on everyone else going on around the league.
Yes,
I mean, Najee Harris could have rushed for an additional 100 yards. And if Derrick Henry doesn't get hurt, I don't know that Najee Harris would be in the Pro Bowl even now.
Yep.
So let's move to the number 3, which moves right on along to checking off the box for people getting them right. You had one, Diontae Johnson.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Diontae Johnson. Now, some Steeler fans are kind of poo-pooing on him making the Pro Bowl because he had some key drops late in the season. What do you think about that, Rich?
I hated to see suddenly we get that little case of the dropsies there at the end. But I mean, the guy put the numbers up.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. He put the numbers up. He was, we had games, especially in the middle of the season, where, I mean, he had some things there. He was looking very much like, Mr. 3rd and 5th used to look on some of those balls. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, and when it comes to the drops, they're fresh in our mind because when he had them late. He went a really long time without having a drop when you think about it. If you look at I was going to look at the advanced receiving stats according to Pro Football Reference that keeps track of drops. Okay. Now remember, these are regular season. Last year, they had Diontae Johnson with 13 drops. Do you know how many they had him with this year?
I want to say it was like 5 or something.
You are correct. It was 5.
Yeah.
They had him with 5 drops. So it was down, but yeah. But regardless of who the receiver is, when it's third down and you have the ball thrown to you and you're past the sticks and you just drop it, that changes the game. That changes the game. So it's just kind of crazy. So good receiver, fell off towards the end, but you still got to look at the whole season. If you know what I mean. And when I say fell off, I just mean had some issues come up towards the end of the season with the drops. What else? Anything else you want to say about Diontae?
No, because I got it right. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. And instead, for my number 3, I had Chase Claypool. Because I'm like, man, if that guy improves at all from year 1 to year 2, look out. Now, if you haven't been following my exit interviews at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, I already did one with Claypool. I do two players at once. When they come up, I already did. Who was Claypool? He was recently. He was with James Washington. But I noted with Claypool and his stats, with the exceptions of touchdowns, he had almost the exact same stats as last year.
Yeah, his catches and yardage were pretty much the same.
And he played in one less game because he missed 2 games this year because of injury.
But the touchdown number dropped off tremendously.
That's the big thing. It was the touchdown numbers that he went from 9 receiving touchdowns down to 2 receiving touchdowns. So because honestly, him and James Washington, same number of receiving touchdowns in the regular season. James Washington had 1 more. Go ahead.
Now,
because guess what? Your number 2 player was Chase Claypool.
Yeah. Here's where Chase then gets hurt with the touchdown numbers.
Yeah.
1 word.
Mm-hmm.
Muth.
Because they had the other big target.
Muth became the red zone target.
Yeah.
That Chase Claypool had been the year before.
Yeah. And you can see, there are gaps in his game, Chase Claypool. I mean, he waits for the ball to come into his body rather than reaching up or high pointing it. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that a lot. So these are things he can continue to work on. We knew that if he improved at all, that he was a good chance he could make the Pro Bowl. He just didn't make that jump from year 1 to year 2 and didn't have the touchdowns. So that was your number 2. My number 2, and this is a position I want to talk about a little bit with this, is I had Kevin Dotson. Now, Kevin Dotson, man, he looked real good in the preseason, and he didn't look bad in the regular season. And like I said, the Steelers' running game was really starting to get going. I would have loved to have seen how he would have improved as the season went on.
Yeah, he maybe would have had a chance.
But you mentioned it in this podcast, not this one, the one that we're recapping, that the problem is with offensive linemen, they generally make the Pro Bowl a year later.
Yes.
They make the Pro Bowl a year later than what they should because you need the name recognition. So, but we also talked about, because of the name recognition, there was a void because David DeCastro was the Pro Bowler for the longest time. So there was going to be another one in the AFC. And what to do? Went to both Browns guys, right? Something like that. I don't know. I think they had two guards. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a guard. I can't remember. But I still think Kevin Dotson, here's the issue with that position group, because we talked about this with the defensive line. We're like, if all of them are too good, then it's probably going to not help anyone's case to say that they're good to be Pro Bowl or All Pro or something like that. With the offensive line, the whole unit has to be decent.
Yeah.
To really get noticed.
Yep.
And then you have to be the best one out of all of them. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. That's a fair way to put it. You've got to be a good unit, and then you have to be the best guy in that good unit.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be the best guy in a good squad. I mean, sometimes you'll get two. I mean, the Steelers had two for a while, but who earned it early on in their last year in the league, with just more of a we don't know who else to give it to deal. It almost felt like. But that's one that's interesting, that it really does depend on everything else going on. We didn't talk about with the receivers. If you don't have a quarterback that can get you the ball, then you're going to struggle to put up the numbers as a receiver to make it to the Pro Bowl. Honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly. I mean, it is what it is. And here, I'll even say this, another one with the receivers, because I meant to say this when we were there and I forgot. If you have too many good receivers on your team, it could really hurt your chances.
Yeah.
That because of having to spread the ball around. So it really does depend on a lot. You're getting an individual award, which really does depend a lot on the others around you. Let's go ahead and finish this up so we can finish up this talk. We both had the same player for number one, and this is one I definitely want to talk about. Do you remember who it was?
I don't even remember.
We both had one. Devin Bush coming off of injury. Did not have a good year. He did not have a good year. And if you listen to our audio only podcasts, if you listen to, it was mentioned briefly in Jeffrey Benedict's cutting room floor today, Tuesday, that was out. He said a line in there, and he said it so many times, and he's exactly right. And he said, Devin Bush is not that kind of linebacker. And what he was talking about was, if big offensive linemen can get to Devin Bush, he's pretty much done. He's not big enough and strong enough to shed those blocks. So yes, there was the issues with the knee and everything else coming back from injury. I'm not ready to write him off yet. So many people are talking, why are we talking about how he's a bust already? We are so quick to judge, and just think of how bad the same fans hated Bud Dupree, and he was Dud Dupree, and he was terrible, and then turned around and said, we can't lose this guy. We can't lose him, So don't be too quick to judge, especially with that. He's got to get better next year, or he's going to probably not find himself playing as much. But a lot of people, just like they said about, we need to bench Diontae Johnson with the drops. We need to bench Devin Bush. The question was, who else are we going to play? Did you really want to put Marcus Allen out there the whole time? And things like that. Some people are like, they need bench. They're not very good. Well, what makes you think the guy behind him is better? Okay? Seriously. So that's the thing with Devin Bush. But my question, I do have a question for you, but I want to see if there's something you want to say about Bush first.
No, other than I was disappointed that as the season went on, to me, it became clear that he still was not 100% over the knee injury from the year before. This is his money season right here.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah.
A lot of what could go on with him and his future will be decided this year.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about his Pittsburgh. I'm talking about his
just in
football.
General. Yeah.
His football future.
And as Jeffrey said, before he got hurt, he was really good. But now I'm going to ask you this question. And you're probably going to dismiss it at first at no. But then you might want to think about it a little bit deeper. And it's a question I started off with my number 5 and your number 4 and some other things we did. If Stephon Tuitt is healthy and plays at his level,
it helps
does
him
Devin
so much.
Bush actually get back into the conversation of being a Pro Bowler? And the reason why is if you have guys up front taking up those blocks where they're not getting to Devin Bush and making him completely ineffective because that's not his game, and he's actually put in a situation, does he start to get more confidence with his knee early on? because he's not having to take on those big linemen? And does he start playing a little bit better? I would have loved to have seen it. I would have loved to have seen it.
It's nice when you can have two defensive tackles in Cam Heyward and Stephon Tuitt that they either A, get double teamed, at which point the guys can't leave the double teams early to come after Bush because chances are Tuitt or Heyward then beats them.
Yeah.
Or B, if they don't double team those guys are in making the plays and Bush is just hanging out waiting to clean things up.
This was right before I said the question. Steeler Chick 46 said Bush got exposed by Tuitt gone. And it's funny when you say got exposed, I don't think the Steelers ever felt that Devin Bush was going to be a linebacker to take on linemen. It's that
when he was drafted, he was not expected to be Vinny Vici. You know, he was not Vince Williams.
Yeah.
You know, he is not Levon Kirkland. Right? He is more of he's more of a Jack Lambert, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And let me bring this up. It's $2.99 dingo dollars from one Matty P that said, I say no, Dave. I think they've rushed him back. I don't know that they rushed him back because guess what? You're never going to fully heal from an injury like that until you use it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they rushed him back. I think Steelers fans, including myself, had too much of an expectation of what he could do on his knee when he first came back. That's my opinion. What do you?
It's rushed him back. No, get him back in the best of circumstances for him. No, we didn't do that either. Yeah. Really, it ends up just being a coming back, working through it kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that you're going to do it. It's going to have to be a process. What would have been nice was if they wouldn't have had to have counted on him as much. Yes. You know, limit his snaps right off the bat and everything would have been better. But my thing was, Jeffrey talked about this, and he's exactly right in his cutting room floor. If you're not listening to that podcast, you're missing a good one. I listen every week. Although I have to admit, I haven't finished this week. So I only listened to about 3/4 of it, and I got to finish it tomorrow morning. But he was saying and he talked about the Steelers defensive line, about one of the things that they do is that they put players in a situation that builds to their strengths. But when people get injured, you have to put them in situations that you have to call on them all the time, and you're not putting them in situations that play to their strengths. You put Devin Bush in a situation that plays to his strength of not having linemen on him, by having defensive linemen from him that chew up blocks. You couldn't put him in a situation to build to his strength this year. You just didn't have the guys. Just like you couldn't put, Jerry's example, Henry Mondell, you couldn't just put him in there on obvious passing downs and just let him rush the passer from the defensive line because he's one of the better ones they have. And Jeffrey pointed out at how many sacks TJ Watt had in the previous year with Henry Mondell playing right next to him would actually surprise you. And that he was a good pass rusher. But when he has to be out there all the time, then you get exposed with your weaknesses. And those were some really good things. So going back to the Pro Bowl thing, it's really crazy about how so much other people can affect what it could be. Stephon Tuitt being there might have made Cam Heyward not be as noticeable, but could have made a player like Devin Bush even more noticeable because of what he does. It's just crazy how it works out. So,
yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Next year, sometime in June to July, we'll be making another list of folks who we think might make their first Pro Bowl.
Yes, we do, and that's what we're going to do.
Some of the people that were on the list this year might be on the list again next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if they didn't make it, they still have a chance. Well, I am going to say that Stephon Tuitt is, and I had an article about this on Monday. That's one of the biggest things the Steelers have to know very soon, because everything that they do, I mean, you're going from, we might want to draft a defensive lineman oh, not necessarily at the top, but we might need some youth at the position because the other guys we have are getting up there. If Tuitt's coming back, if Tuitt's not coming back, you need a starter.
Yep.
You really do. You need a starter, whether you do it in free agency or what. But that just completely changed what you're going to have to do there. So that's good. We've got to get to our question. I'm not sure what to even do for our question. Did you have a question, Rich?
I mean, I could ask a question, but
yeah, because
does it have to relate to
next week's question?
Does it have to relate to Pro Bowl?
Doesn't relate to Pro Bowl, but it should hopefully maybe relate to something we talked about tonight.
Something we talked about tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. You say it, I'll type it in. Remember the rules. Don't answer the question until you see it on the live chat typed in by me. We will bring up your response.
Correct. You got to get ready because I'm asking the question. You will be the one answering this tonight. Okay.
Yes.
I'll be nice and say in 3 words or less. Give me your initial knee-jerk reaction to Tom Brady retiring.
Okay. 3 words, Brady, about the Brady retirement.
Sure.
Mine is less, as I just say, good riddance.
And you told me you didn't read my thing for in the.
Oh, I didn't. That's
you need to get
the article.
Go read. Go read.
Yeah. People, don't put your answer in yet. You ready? I'm going to block you. Not block you. I'm going to put you in timeout. That's the rules. You don't get to answer until we call for it. Okay?
That's right.
Man, people just can't.
Yep.
They can't follow directions. Here we go. Timeout.
Put it in there.
There we go. You ready? Now there's the question. 3 words. What do you have to say about Brady's retirement? Okay. We're ready for it now, and we can bring them up. We'll read them here to finish out the show. We'll do it for the last few minutes here. And if there's any bad language, I'm not using it either. Okay. That one is you go into a timeout because you answered early. Let's see. Wang Brady move by Sean Manahan. Stacy Lynn says, thank God. Kathy Ford said, who is that? This one's 4 words. So I'm just going to read the first 2. No answer. Okay. George Teston, not in stone.
Yeah.
Monster says, good riddance with another word in between, so I'm not going to bring it up. Steel Dog 88 says, meh. This other guy, I'm just tired of you anyway. So you're in timeout. Where are we going?
This one.
Steeler 46, Giselle 1.
That's a good one. Good one, Steeler chick. Okay. Love it.
George Wright says the best ever. I'm not saying that you're wrong. No. I'm not. But as a Steeler fan, I'd rather say, like Kobe Brigade says, see you later. Okay. Byron John says, I don't care. Bernardo Vasquez says, the Florida effect. Big Mac says, see you later. This guy says, good for him.
Must be nuts.
Okay. All right. I didn't read the first word right.
Okay.
So, yeah. Tyler W. says, why not sooner? Okay. Joe says, not with Ben. BF Bud. Riva Derchi. Okay. I was missing. Jeez. Yeah, Jeez. NSOM says, about time, Brady. Manuel says, good riddance, like I said. Matty P says, deflate gate, no tomatoes. Okay. Steelers Pittsburgh says, good. Dwayne Williams says, thank God. Monster got a good one. Good flipping riddance.
There you go.
I love it. That's a great one. Okay. And then Brian Brown says, "Good riddance, cheater." Big Mac. Oh, wait, you already doing Big Mac. We'll bring it up anyway. He says, "Stole Ben's thunder." Sherry Richardson.
Sherry, wait till July.
Wait till July.
Brett Favre, anyone?
Yeah. Felicia. Hey, Felicia says, "Screwed up Ben." Johnny Rocket says, "Who cares?" Tyler W. James caught the ball. I'm only going to read 3 words, although they put more than 3 in there. Marino, best ever. Okay. Matty P said, what was it? 199. D. Okay, he's trying to tell me how to pronounce it. I still can't get it right. So yeah, that kind of.
Explain it to you later.
Yeah, that wraps it up. Rich.
Oh, you know what? Oh, wait a minute. Now, see.
Oh, wait, we have a good one.
No,
Adrian says 8 years later.
That's funny. No, I was going to say, Steelers Pittsburgh. If we put "bye" right there, that would be a good one.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah. So, no football this weekend other than the Pro Bowl. We talked about making the Pro Bowl, but we're going to talk about the game. Rich, what do you have to say to close us up tonight? What are your final thoughts?
Weekend of Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Equals not real football.
Yeah.
The following week, there is a Super Bowl. Very bummed that the Pittsburgh Steelers will not be playing in it. However, is it too early to start thinking about the next year's Super Bowl?
No, let's do it.
Can't wait.